Daryl did a great job. I mean, what do you think the biggest weakness was in his cross-examination of the prosecution expert?
Well, I don't think Daryl had a weakness. I thought he did one of the best cross-examinations of any of the lawyers in this case. I think the problem is that he's also right that you can look at both sides of these experts. If the jury is going to talk about experts, then the state's going to lose because they're world-renowned experts on both sides. If they look at the other evidence, they'll convict.
Well, and Joey?
You know what it is, though, Judge? When it comes to experts, and you know the conventional wisdom is they balance each other out, right? They neutralize each other. But the problem here is that it creates doubt. So if you have, as Jeff said, if you have world-renowned experts on your team and you're the defense, and you neutralize the points that the prosecution has raised, it spells trouble because what does it spell? Doubt, and that's the issue.
All right, it spells trouble and doubt. Vern Gebreth, Lieutenant Commander?
Well, I wasn't in the courtroom, and I'll defer to the attorneys as far as what was
You
presented.
find a woman in a bathtub squashed up against the bottom. Does that tell you that she flailed and slipped and fell?
No, I don't like it from the get-go, and we talked about this. And this is an equivocal death investigation. And with an equivocal death investigation, the inquiry is open to and could be homicide, suicide, accident, or natural causes. And if it's a staged crime scene, which I believe this to be, it will be purposely vague. This was a staged crime scene by someone who had the experience in the police department who could manipulate the first responders.
All right, we're going to come back
point.
to that. And I want to thank Daryl Goldberg for joining us, as well as the individuals here, Joey Jackson, Vern Gebreth, and Jeff Gold, that are going to continue to be with us. Panel, Joey, Vern, and Jeff are with us. Joey, you're nodding when the doctor was testifying. Is there anything that struck you about her being in the tub that suggested to you that it was a homicide or an accident?
You know what, Judge? Here's my issue, though, and Doctor, you could perhaps clarify this for me. The defense was talking about how some of the abrasions were just artifacts of decomposition.
Let's explain to the viewers. An artifact means like just stuff that happens after you die, blood that kind of pools here or there,
Exactly.
but not part of the injury.
Not part of the injury.
Is that good, Doctor?
So is that?
Kinda?
That's,
All right,
that's correct.
So they were, I think the defense was exploiting that point and saying, look, these abrasions were these artifacts of decomposition as opposed to a part of the actual incident.
So
that
not
was one.
part of the injury, but something that
Exactly.
happened.
And the second thing that struck me, Judge, was also when the defense was talking about, you mentioned, Dr. Bloom, about the fall and about, you know, how she was positioned, and essentially the defense was saying that it was just by chance. This is pure coincidence. And this also, I thought, rebutted Dr. Case's testimony when they talked about how the head was a cut, right? The cut would have been horizontal as opposed to vertical or vice versa.
Fallen.
So I guess that was something that I was looking for, you know, the state perhaps to rebut.
All right, Jeff, you were in the courtroom. I mean, what struck you? I mean, do you think homicide, accident? What do you think? You heard all the experts.
Well, I personally think, of course, that it was a homicide, not an accident. And two of the things we've talked about is the buttocks and this blood. I mean, when you see that a young lady in the tub with the blood running down, you say, how could that have had water? And there's been nothing in the case about that. Look, I just think, Judge, the way we're talking about this case, about the medicine, about the autopsy is great, except for if the jury focuses on it, they're wrong. Look, if it snowed last night, you can say, I woke up, I looked at the snow, that's direct evidence. But you also can say, I went to bed, no snow on the ground, I woke up in the morning, there was snow on the ground. It's just as satisfying. The state is making a circumstantial case with admissions from the defendant, admissions by the fourth wife, and admissions about what happened, or statements from the dead wife.
But in terms of the bathtub, Vern, what you were talking about equivocal death, and Doctor, you understand, you know, what he means by that. It could be an accident or a homicide. You also talk about a clever offender.
Okay, we're talking about someone who is an experienced police officer who is at the scene, has the body discovered by the neighbor, and when the first responders come there, he's in a position to influence them. Now, here's the problem. With a staged crime scene, even an experienced homicide investigator can be fooled by the presentation, because in homicide, we look for the presentation and the victimology. You have an investigator who's over his head. Some wizard in the Illinois State Police decided to promote people from the street without qualification. Then you have a crime scene technician who is a wise guy, who's not supposed to be making any cause or manner interpretation.
Shame on him, Robert
He's supposed to be
Steele.
collecting evidence
Shame
and
on
documenting the scene. Here's the other issue. The other issue is this. Drew Peterson is present during this and feeding them the information to make it look like an accident as opposed to a homicide. There's red flags here.
Judge, if they focus on...
Let's talk about the red flags. Red flag. Ex-husband, wife in legal contention. Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2, 18 domestic violence calls. Red flag number 3, staged crime scene. It's right over their head.
And not only that, he's present when the fourth wife is interviewed to provide him an alibi. That's what they call in Chicago professional courtesy. Quick, Joey.
The only thing I wanted to say is, Vern, if the jury focuses on what you focus on, and I think if the prosecution makes them focus on that, an experienced officer, someone who could manipulate a crime scene, someone who can make a death seem like an accident, now the prosecution has a very reasonable argument.
Dr. Bloom,
I agree.
last words before we go to break? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know.